Hello. Welcome, everyone, to the Sun and the Moon. Alex is not here with us this week. She will be back next week. Our originally scheduled guest, Benjamin Acadia, came down with a bad case of food poisoning. And thankfully so much, Chris Carr is here, the host of the Cannabis Connection. Thank you so much, Chris, for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, and hope he feels better. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. So Chris, it's so funny. You had me on your show a few months back, and now you're on my show.
It's full circle. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's always wonderful to step in and I was hoping to come on at some point, so it just manifested.
Yeah, perfect timing. I really appreciate it. Why don't you tell everyone about yourself and what you do? And
oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm Christopher. I go by Smiley. I'm in Santa Cruz right now, so I live in the Santa Cruz Mountains with my baby Sophia Rose and my little puppy girl Sunflower and my wife Alexi. And I've been in agriculture my whole life. I grew up in the Sierra Nevada foothills of El Dorado County, growing fruit trees, apples, Apple Hill. It's like the Shire. Everyone growing up would ask me where I'm from, and I would say, well, nobody really knows Camino, California. So I'd say, the Hobbits and the Shire, that's where I grew up, and became enthralled with the growing of apples and wine and viticulture. I was working with families that grew grapes and made wine and babysitted kids, and my first exposure to cannabis was in that community of the Sierra Nevada foothills off Highway 50 on the way to Lake Tahoe, and started growing with my father. Came to Santa Cruz, and some of the first people I met were musicians that had trim jobs. We would chop our way to the top and save up money for recording and tour money and beer money, and that was 2008. So that was this tough time with the housing crisis. So it felt like every family in Santa Cruz started throwing up 4 lights in their garage and growing some really fine cannabis. And that progressed into me becoming more involved in the industry professionally. I worked with Santa Cruz Hydroponics and Organics as an event coordinator, throwing barbecues and having Ask the Expert days where growers were interacting with soil scientists and nutrient lines, and got to know a lot of the growers in the community, and became involved in the medical space, Prop 215 era. Met Val Corral of WAMM, and in 2015 we opened a dispensary. I was hired by the 2 owners of the dispensary, Kind People's Collective. I was employee number 1, and we scaled it when we opened with 9 people to 90 in 18 months, and we had 2 locations.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and so we had a really big genetics section of the dispensary. So Santa Cruz, being home of the Haze, has some really wonderful breeders. Bodie seeds would come in, a lot of great seed providers. And that's when I really went deep into growing cannabis and understanding genetics and the history behind the genetics. And the show started. We opened the shop in 2014, and I started the Cannabis Connection in 2015, and I've been doing these kind of conversations every Friday ever since, going on 8 years.
Great.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's fun. This is my first podcast like this, though. So this is, oh, wow, look at that kitty. Was that an imagination? Okay, right on.
That was Steve. He might make another appearance at some point.
That was wonderful. Guest appearance. I thought I was just hallucinating. That was cool.
Hey, buddy. Yeah, that's my buddy.
Nice.
His cat tower is right here, so he kind of makes his little path there.
Little cameos. I love it.
So it sounds like you have a lot of background and experience in organic cultivation and working with cannabis and patients and customers on like the dispensary side. Let's talk about like different genetics and like some breeding techniques. So you said you had a big section dedicated to genetics. Let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, that was eye-opening time. We had with Prop 215, there was this legal immunity. It was gray area. So in the early days,
I remember those days.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Yeah. It was such a wonderful time. And
I wish 215 would come back.
Me too, or something like it. I hope policy can be responsive and we can get to that point where
Yeah.
we would have amazing farms come through, and they were all pretty hush hush in the beginning, but they would look at, we had cuttings, we had trays, we had a really nice little seed bank, and library, and just talk shop. And I got to know, it was amazing the amount of farmers from other parts of California, Calaveras County, Mendocino, Humboldt, El Dorado, like Gold Country, Nevada County, El Dorado County. They would, visit Santa Cruz. We're this tourist destination community, and they've heard that we had this, they could see the menu online and be like, oh my gosh, these guys have a lot of beans. And so, yeah, my favorite breeder that I got to interact with was by far Bodie of Bodie Seeds, and
He's a legend.
he's a legend. Yeah, and he's a very
Yeah.
peaceful, beautiful soul, very very sweet person. And the what won my heart over was the varieties that we tried. Santa Cruz is challenging with the marine layer and mold and botrytis and PM, and
Yeah, that
we
moisture.
were, yeah, it happens. And we were excited about different varieties. I remember when I was running the floor, that was when Gorilla Glue first came out, and we were, those cuttings were really hard to come by, but we had them, and people were so excited. But I remember it wasn't very stable. The first Gorilla Glue cuttings I grew, and I coddled them inside and tried to make cuttings and grow them outside, and it was always a big
Stable in
challenge.
what way?
We had hermaphroditism inside, and then outside, yeah, the mold was so hard. We just had botrytis, and but the seeds were never an issue. The specifically Bodhi varieties were always really resilient. Yeah, and it could be the males of the snow lotus. That Goji OG is pretty well known here. Anything with the hazes did so well. There was this period of a lot of people working with the super silver haze. I know those genetics were bred in Amsterdam, but I think it was just a wonderful cultivar for the Santa Cruz Mountains and for these farmers that were finding their way through the challenges of the humidity at night and the marine layer, the fog, especially in South County. Yeah, South County, they call it fog toss. So that was a powerful trial by fire, providing seeds, doing the research, and testing, doing actual testing, even if it was small scale, trying all types of varieties and having access. Up until that point, it was more word of mouth, friends of friends, connections, personal connections of sourcing quality genetics, and having that dispensary and that collective, the Kind People's Collective, the Kind Fam. That was a wonderful era pre Prop 64 of just wonderful meeting a new farmer every day, every shift, every hour of every day. Someone from somewhere else in California was talking shop about cannabis and bringing beans too. That was the other fun thing. If I sold some beans in January, and then 12 months later they came back, and that was that wonderful exchange, like, hey, Smiley, remember these? Like, and gave me some buds from the beans I sold a year prior. And then other crosses, just the love that comes from it.
It's great to like give beans to someone and then watch them grow them and develop, and then get to see the bud and the end result. It's really rewarding.
It's so important. Yeah, I imagine, because you make some beautiful seeds. I've seen your work. It's lovely, and I imagine to see it tested out. And every seed is a prayer. It's its own unicorn, right? So that each pheno it's beautiful to see the work come back, and for them to make their own work and bring those beans, and to have that. I have these little binders and jars and fridges full of wonderful work that I can't wait to try. There's only so much I can do every year.
I know that feeling. I have a huge stash of seeds, and maybe 5% of them get planted. I went to the Emerald Cup one year, and I spent $1,500 on seeds, and I don't think I grew any of them to flower. None of them made it to flower, unfortunately.
Oh no! Yeah,
I still have a bunch of them left, but that's just kind of the nature of it, I think. It's like we get so
Absolutely.
overzealous about the plant and just love it so much.
Absolutely.
Overcommit sometimes maybe.
Oh, 100%. Every year. It takes a very strong will to kind of dial it back. And even this year, I had so many things that I put together, kind of Paul and Chuck, but was honored to have friends provide stuff for me to test and to do that effort of documenting, taking pictures, the germination, the veg. We're kind of getting closer to this transition. We're coming into this new time, and I'm very excited to see the bloom and the flower phase. So who knows? I kind of just committed on doing my role as testing for a few local seed providers, and it's always it's a wonderful season. I'm more of a full term sun grown organic regenerative person. I don't really have a lot of infrastructure. We live on this beautiful property in the Santa Cruz Mountains that is truly a garden property. And then where I grew up in El Dorado County, beautiful soil. We just love to be full term. That one crop a year is really our focus. So
I used to live in El Dorado County.
Oh, wonderful! Very cool.
I was in South Lake Tahoe though.
Yes, well, we were just in South Lake on Monday, and it was wonderful. It's always I love it. Yeah, I mean, summer too is wonderful. I love the snow sports. I love the snow, but even the lake in the summertime is amazing.
Yeah, there's this special little window that I just loved where you get to go snowboarding, and then after you're done, you go down to the lake.
Oh my gosh,
it was just magical.
That is magical. Yeah, God's country.
Yeah. Oh, it was so great. I enjoyed it so much. So you were mentioning, you've experienced a lot of different beans and stuff. What are and you also dealt with fighting against like mold and botrytis, PM, things like that. What genetics do you think were the most resilient? What kind of categories of genetics do you think were the most resistant toward from that kind of pathogen?
I feel like, so I don't know and this is interesting. I like to open this up whenever I have an opportunity to talk publicly. That there's a friend of mine that came on the show that was experimenting with this Big Sur holy weed, which in other conversations I've heard breeders or seed makers speak to, like maybe it was Zacatecas, like Mexican cultivar, that was acclimated to Santa Cruz. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of lore behind this one type of cannabis, but I was given a cross of a banana kush with this Big Sur holy weed, and they were culling seedlings, and they came on my show, had the seedlings in their truck, and at the end of the night they said, "Do you want them?" Because they were just getting rid. And I took that and have taken care of it for almost 8 years now. And that one variety does so well in the Santa Cruz terroir, this challenging micro climates of really wet, marine layer cannabis cultivation.
Very moist environment there.
Very moist. And so I found sometimes whenever there's a parent in the line that is of that region, maybe Zacatecas or a Oaxacan. I've also found through Coastal Seeds, my friend Michael, kind of an elder in the community, there was a year where I was growing in Happy Valley near a different part of the Santa Cruz Mountains, and beautiful 80-acre property. This family let me cultivate and caregive for them, and we had a temporary outdoor license through the early days of the provisional license of the implementation of Prop 64. We grew this Panama Red that did exceptionally well. He had a Kauai Electric we tried out. So kind of these older lines, not like
old school stuff.
Total old school stuff that did great. And it's not the most it's not this purple candy weed.
Right.
But that said, we had some fun putting things together. Bodhi too has some kind of old meets world hybrids that it's something those types of hybrids do well in Santa Cruz. I think sometimes it's nice to have the old school stuff, old world meets new world, and you get a little bit of the best of both worlds.
Those were kind of like naturally selected, in nature for long periods of time. you know.
Yeah,
So it's like they've adapted to. They're more harsh. They're more, what's the word, bulletproof. People call
that's
it.
right.
Yeah,
Yes,
more like bulletproofed, where
they're
they can kind
bulletproof.
of withstand, you know, a lot of different things, molds and pathogens and pests and different things. It's so amazing how these landrace genetics have like, or close to them, have these like really strong resilience compared to, you know, what you see nowadays.
These polyhybrids and these
Oh
hyped
yeah.
up. Yeah, these, and I've spoken with Compound and Node Labs, and I have a lot of respect. I've tried some of that work. I love the flavors and the feelings, and I've had some retailers on my show speak to that, maybe the psychology behind like the dominance of gelato and runts and gelato crosses right now, and this pandemic we went through, and that cozy feeling of the purple sedative, irie vibes. It's nice.
Right.
But what's interesting is there is a demand. I interviewed Grant Palmer of Santa Cruz. He has a shop in Santa Cruz and a shop in Salinas, and he's about to open some more shops on the Central Coast. And he was like, they're looking for that wild sativa. They're looking for the
It's coming
people.
back.
Yeah, it's coming back, which is very cool. I'm very excited. Hazes, those things really fire me up. I think Bodhi said something like that, like he loves extremes, different extremes, and
Very unique cannabis. People want unique cannabis. It's been, like the cookies have been bred with, the cookies and OGs have been bred with for so long, and they're so common that people are like, I want something super different, super different.
Yeah, super different, and to maybe, adventurous, looking for adventure. I know there was some varieties of red Congolese on the market that people were excited about, and it's just interesting to see different things other than the cookies, the OGs, the kind of sours, the dominant,
right,
things that people have been, purple candy, dessert weed is
candy dessert weed.
You know what I mean? It's like, and I love
funny.
it. I love it, but I'm very ADD when it comes. I just love cannabis in all forms, and love to explore extremes. And
that's what sells. People want dessert. They
want dessert for dinner. They want dessert first.
It could be an earthy weed, and they'll call it a dessert. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know. That's the other thing, is the name game,
dessert.
right? Yeah.
Tastes like garlic, and they're like, oh, dessert weed.
That's right. Yeah.
So it sounds like you work with a lot of seeds. I love working with seeds. I love playing with like different germination techniques, and I've learned the hard way what does and doesn't work. It sounds like you have too. What's your favorite way to germinate a seed?
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's nothing crazy. I have a scuffing method that is old school. I've learned from a lot of elders in this community, and then also like the books, right? Ed Rosenthal, Jorge Cervantes. I kind of grew up moving here in 2008. I didn't really know anyone. I took the one guy I knew in Santa Cruz. He left on tour and never came back. I took his room. So I kind of, my roommates were my first buddies. They took me in. They had an amazing psychedelic surf rock band, and so they are the ones that gave me like the Jorge Cervantes book. They gave me the Ed Rosenthal books, and so I've kind of like taken some of that knowledge, and then also working with farmers, learned. I like to put my seeds in a matchbox. I'll take like a little nail file, cut it into thirds, so there's a little bit of a kind of sandpaper bottom, and then I take the seeds. Sometimes, I'll soak them a little bit and then put them in the matchbox and do the
scuffing. Put them in your mouth?
Put them in my mouth, give them a little bit of my biome, and soften them a little bit, also scuff them. And they, I kind of say a little, intention over it, 30 seconds at least. I kind of do I have a little thing I do, a little chant, and put it right into water, and they soak. And once they've kind of opened up and there's this germ coming out, this little feed me Seymour, little shop of horrors thing happening. Sometimes I'll do the paper towel tech, and I've also tried these things where I've seen farmers hang it up so the seed kind of grows down, but I just have my little zone here where I do a wet paper towel, and they really get going. And lately I've been going direct into like 4-inch pots. I used to do cells. Last year when I was working in the commercial cannabis space, we had like a trays of 72 cells, and we would put the seeds in with a little like vermiculite on top and water it so that it just retains the water. and we just had tables. I had 100 trays
Okay.
per table, 72 cells per tray, and kind of cover them up because the rats or the birds would try to eat them at night. But yeah, you just kind of wait and pray, make sure everything's wet and
Yeah.
happy. You know what I mean? It's always like you said.
Yeah. You spray and you pray. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally. That's funny.
I hope it works. And
Yeah.
I've also had bad luck with older seeds. That's something I'm still humbled by. Like I don't know if
I've played with. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
no, please interrupt me because I didn't know what to do. It's kind of a tricky
I've
thing.
played with that quite a bit. Trying to get like old seeds to germinate. And like what's going to work. The abrasion, the scuffing, like you were talking about, I think is important. I do my best to introduce amino acids and enzymes, but I try to avoid biology as much as possible.
Nice.
I feel like those older seeds are a little bit more susceptible to bacteria, like kind of eating them and then like rotting and stuff. So I keep like earthworm castings or compost really low, but I make sure I do have like a nutrient source in my soil. So like I'll use like an enzyme product and like some aloe vera, and just spray it, like mist it very lightly. I like to do the 4-inch pots like you were talking about.
Yeah, I like that.
I didn't use vermiculite when I did the 4-inch pots. So like sometimes I'll even soak like a paper towel in an enzyme source, like SLF 100 is a good one that I like to use, and that kind of keeps bacterial blooms down also.
Nice.
I've also tried really inoculating them with a bunch of bacteria, and that seems to work too.
Wild. Yeah.
So like, but almost like bugs in a jug, kind of like a really controlled inoculant, which I'm not a super big fan of. But it seems like those aren't as voracious as like something with a really wide bacterial profile, like earthworm castings or compost that are like really broken down organic matter. It's just like kind of very specific biology. That seems to work well too, with like a little bit of humate source. When you were talking about in the cells with the vermiculite on top, I was on a hemp farm. We did 700-acre hemp farm in Canada. That I was part of the germination and propagation for. 3.5 million seeds we put into those 72 cell trays and topped with vermiculite. It was really cool to see. And we just had these 6 huge greenhouses just canopy full of these little babies sprouts, just huge amount of plants. It was so much fun. But yeah, they did it just like that with like really cheap, inconsistent soil that like wasn't mixed properly, and like some of them got burned because they weren't mixed right.
Got it.
But it was like vermiculite on top, and it was just water.
It's just water.
It was just water. And at some point, I was on the vermiculite is it's like an expanded, it's like a silica, isn't it?
Yes, it's like a fluffy, almost mineral that holds the water on the surface, kind of like incubates. It provides that. It's kind of like that paper towel tack. It just holds and retains the water. Yep, and the baby germ just germinates and sprouts.
I believe it's like a superheated, some kind of silica source that then like pops almost like popcorn.
It kind of feels like a popcorn feel. Yeah.
Because I remember I wondered that one time and I looked it up, and it's like a silica something that was heated, like superheated until it like pops, and then they kind of like munch it up and they use it, and that's vermiculite. But anyway, seeds are, they kind of just grow, right?
Yeah, the will to grow and the instinct is so beautiful because they want to live. They just want to live. Yeah, and it's so gorgeous.
My cat somehow got a seed into his water bowl the other day. Did you see that post I made on Facebook?
I saw that, and it's off and running. I imagine you planted it.
I planted it. It's in the greenhouse. It's already popped its cotyledons out.
That's so cool.
It's so funny.
Volunteers.
It's just like the most random volunteer. I was like cleaning out his water bowl, and there was a seed that was just chilling in there, and I was like, no way. I'm like, that's the coolest thing ever. I'm like, I have to grow this plant and see. I mean, I have no idea what it is.
I
It probably,
I have volunteers in the yard, and we have no idea. It was like a
yeah.
trim tray. I just, because we had a little one, so I probably just took it to the back part of the yard so she wouldn't find it. And now, come springtime, we had some pretty large plants, and they're big now. They're my biggest plants. I have no idea what
It's
they
funny
are.
how that works. Like the volunteers are always the biggest and most fast growing plants in the
Fast
garden.
growing, so tapped in. We
Right.
had, yeah, it's so cool that
I,
we had. It's so crazy.
oh, sorry. No, what were you gonna say?
We had these storms in the beginning of the year. These atmospheric rivers. I remember in New Year's, we were all here as a family, and the power went out, and we did New Year's in like by the fireplace because there was no power, no light, and we had these tea roses that had grown these like bushes. They're like hedges, but they were 50 years old, and they had gotten way too tall, and these huge winds broke them in half and broke our fence and kind of unearthed all of this like mycelium came up, and we had to get rid of the trees, and we unearthed all this like biology that was kind of 50 years in the making, and those little volunteers are in the thick of that, and they're so happy
Oh,
and
that's so
vigorous.
cool.
And that's why I have a I just have an intuition that they're just tapped into the
A mycelium layer.
yeah, that
Yeah,
network there is so
super
established,
cool biology.
so strong, and it just took all that energy that these massive, these things were way too tall, they were too old. They naturally ended, and then these volunteers came up, and they are like really impressive plants, and it's just a testament to the native indigenous microbes and the biology in the backyard. It's so
It's
funny.
true. You know,
Yeah.
hydrous phyllosilicate mineral, which undergoes significant expansion when heated.
Wow. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you, Lily. That's awesome.
Um,
It's important
yeah,
to
I
know.
love growing direct sowing in native soil is
Whew.
is the best. It's the best. I've had opportunities to be able to do that quite a bit in the past, and they're always the tallest and the biggest leaves. Um, it's just so much fun. There's really something to be said about tap roots going directly into the ground, going
Yeah,
as deep as they can, going into the water table,
that's right.
and native biology. You know,
When you do a direct sowing, I've always been, I should. But when you do a direct sowing, what's the best approach, and how would you prepare for that? Because I'm always worried about just wildlife, like birds and things.
that's
I
the
mean,
thing, right?
that's what
That's why
happens,
we
I
don't.
imagine.
That's like why people don't really do it for like any kind of real production, right?
Sure. It's more just labor of love, maybe, or experiments.
Usually it's an accident, you
Good.
know.
Yeah, that's what
And,
happened for us. Yeah.
and on the farm that I was working on when we had a bunch of that was, my buddy, he was doing a lot of breeding projects outdoors, and birds would eat the seeds and then they wouldn't digest them, and then they would come out and they would make it into the ground, and then all of a sudden you would just have a volunteer, and we didn't know if it was a male or female. So we would just keep a close eye on it, and if it started, showing male characteristics, it got the call, and if it didn't, it just stayed there and would get huge. And I remember one year we had a blue kryptonite, which is the farm that I
Nice.
got my blue kryptonite cut from,
How
that
cool.
had 12 pounds. It was a 12-pound plant. It it we had a compost pile, right? Big
Yeah.
compost pile. We would turn. Seed just kind of plopped into the thing, grew directly on top of this compost pile, and just grew into this massive tree that was right like next to the entrance of the greenhouse. And so like we had to crawl underneath this huge blue kryptonite plant to get into the greenhouse. It was really fun. It kind of felt like being a kid, like playing in the
Yeah,
green.
like a fort or something. You're kind of like having hide and seek with your blue kryptonite
Totally.
guardian.
And the thing, it started to
Something
fall over. It got so big, it just started to fall over because there was no real way to support such a massive tree, and they didn't
sure.
have the infrastructure for it. And so this thing's just like falling over, super big, just arriving in this massive compost pile, and it was so much fun.
That's
Um,
so cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
those happy accidents. You gotta just give thanks when it happens.
yeah,
We're really grateful to have these volunteers. The biggest one, of course, showed male, so I did chop that up.
You gotta give
Give
it the.
the rabbits.
It's
Yeah.
always the biggest one, right?
Oh, it was glorious. So beautiful. So happy. And I in my experience, I was like, well, this might be a boy because it's so it was robust.
Long node spacing.
Very long, very kind of, and it had two little, I think it had two girls it was three volunteers together. The two on the side are girls, and the more big dominant one was a male. Now that the male's gone, the girls are taking off. So that male was throwing shade. I think now they're just thriving, and I'm so grateful. It's fun.
Yeah,
It's really fun to see what happens. I'm going to guess I have no idea. We'll see. We're right in that early stage of.
Are you going to clone off of it?
Maybe. Yeah, I think I will. I should right away because it's getting to that time.
Yeah, you're getting close.
Close.
You got to do it like right away.
Yeah, tonight, tomorrow morning.
Maybe. I have plants that are starting to throw pistols already.
Yeah, me too. I have a couple. A friend of mine, I play in a band, and my singer gave me some clones that he really liked, and yeah, they're throwing pistols. But a lot of my seedlings are still vegging strong. Like we had that, gray May and June gloom. It wasn't very sunny until a few weeks ago, and now things are just blasting off. It's really fun to watch, but it was a bit of a slow start this year in Santa Cruz. It wasn't a lot of sun, to be honest, in the beginning.
Yeah, that full sun really makes a huge difference.
Yes. And I think the July was great. And the seedlings, too, they seem to take their sweet time. I have some weird Swazis and some old, they'll be going for a long time.
Those long sativas, the equatorial genetics, you can grow those all year round.
Yeah, it's just gonna be. Who knows what it'll be? It might be Christmas. Who knows? We'll keep going.
Yeah, jeez.
Really beef, really, really fun to watch. And they're hitting their stride now. Just just really cool, really neat structures, really nice nodes and bracts and things are just coming to life and blasting off. And we have so many, we're in the base of Bonnie Dunes, so there's just a lot of wildlife, little bunny rabbits, squirrels, deer, turkeys. Everything is trying to get in on, and rats, like things that you don't see are just, so we're kind of trying to balance it out. And, obviously I want everything in the ground, but I still have a lot of things in containers just so that I can keep it in a fenced in, keep them not, every time I put them in the ground, it gets gobbled up.
Right.
And if it's not that, it's the gophers. That's something I'm trying to figure out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I feel so bad. I feel bad trapping little rodents and stuff.
Oh, it's so sad. I know.
So
yeah. And if the wrong thing gets in the trap, I had rat traps a couple years back. I had a little greenhouse, and I came out and there was a bird in it. It felt terrible. Like, oh, geez, it was. That was, and they don't know. They're just checking things out, jumping in between the ganja plants, and got trapped.
Oh, yeah, that's too bad. Yeah, I have to have mouse traps out and stuff because they'll, nibble at the stalk, and
that's it.
They nibble at the stalk, and then it's just, they go all the way around it. They won't eat through it. They just go all the way around the outside and just keep the plant from delivering nutrients. And then
just starve it and torture it. Yeah,
and it's just done.
Yeah, or the big monsters, and then the gophers eat the roots, and then that's a sad thing too. We have that up in Gold Country in El Dorado County. It happens all the time. Because I think if I can, I'm always full getting them in the ground. The containers only usually to make sure I can get them to a point where they go in the ground. Yeah,
the biggest plants they always are able to go into native soil, right? You just can't. You can't compare it to the earth.
Exactly. Yeah, like you said, that water table, the mycelium, the biology.
Yeah, gets all the way in there. Just getting the water deep enough. You got to get that water penetration.
That's right. That's right. And mulch. Keep that carbon. Those are things that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we we had a drought. So much drought. It wasn't until this year where we have abundance of water. So we were trying to bring back. All the things that kind of dried up, and sowing seed and cover crops, and just having green mulch too, having other plants in the mix, and polyculture has been.
Living mulch is super important. Did
Yeah.
you by chance happen to catch the last show with Tim Hanrahan?
No, but tell me about it. I
Oh,
want to learn.
he was just talking about the importance of like having multiple like species of plants
Yes.
as living mulches, to bring nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium into the soil. And then, like adding redox and amino acids, root exudates, all this stuff. Like having living mulch is super important, as well as for like water penetration and to prevent runoff, to get that water as deep as you can.
That's I learned last year. I grew in a field in South County, Santa Cruz. Was my first like experience in commercial aggregation, running commercial irrigation with the drip tape, and it was a full acre. It's not that hemp experience you had, but it was the biggest thing I ever encountered. And the crew that let me use the land had a very impressive cover crop, very like lots of different like amazing like crimson clover, vetch, all these interesting cover crops. And so when I started irrigating and then we planted the seedlings from the greenhouse, the cover crops came back and almost outgrew the cannabis, and that weed pressure, it wasn't good, right? It was that weed pressure was really scary because similar to the male volunteer, the desired crop was getting, the weed pressure was outgrowing it. So
Right.
we physically got in there. At first it was manual, and then we weed whacked to get the rows so that the ganja was free of this weed pressure. And then once they broke free, they, similar to the girl volunteers in my backyard, they blasted off. And it was such a beautiful, gorgeous canopy, acre canopy of licensed California cannabis. It was gorgeous. It's one of the honors of my life. But what I learned was there was an intense aphid outbreak in the field. But all of these other plants, they left the cannabis alone. That diversity, these decoys, these bankers, that polyculture, it was a living example of that diversity in action, and how that
Clover?
clover, and
Clover is definitely an aphid
there was
attractor.
probably 3 major varieties with some nuance. So there were some flowers in there too that were kind of pretty. And I don't know, because that wasn't the cover crop. I came in later, right? They kind of cut it down, and then I was able to move in and make the beds and make the rows and did everything myself. It was a lot of work. But I knew from after that, I was like, whenever possible, have diversity. Because if something is out of, like, for example, like a plague of aphids, we still pulled off an amazing happy plant, happy crop, and took everything through the compliance testing. Everything was good.
That's great.
Super lucky. Yeah, super
Oh,
beautiful.
that's great.
Well, and that's that biological systems of natural control.
100%.
The other stuff.
And I just want to say it's super important, like if you're going to be doing like living mulch, to introduce plants native to your environment.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
You know what I mean? It's so easy for people to want to get like Dutch clover and throw it all over California or wherever you are. Like please don't do that. And, there's websites you can find like native wildflowers and like a whole bunch of different things to have like a really beautiful living mulch that's not going to change the ecosystems. And not going to invade your whole space and outcompete a bunch of diversity with a plant that's not supposed to be there.
Amen. That's so important. We had, when I was in Happy Valley, massive gopher problem. This is maybe 2018, 2017. And somewhere somebody said, plant California poppies. The gophers don't like the when they grow, they didn't like and we tried it whenever we planted, because everything in that garden was, we had auger, and we just made these really large holes, and then brought in some kind of nicely mixed nutrient rich soil with the native soil, just to amend and aerate the hole a little bit. And that one year we had a massive gopher problem where things are just dying. They're just dropping like flies. It was so sad. So the next year we did this California poppy project with some native cover crops at the point of planting the cannabis. And I don't know if it was luck or if the gophers had moved on or if those native plants deterred, because you could see there was some things eaten, or the poppies came up,
That's interesting.
but the plant survived. And so I have had experiences where I'm a true believer in what you're saying, and certain, like California poppy really kept the gophers.
I wonder if there's a compound in California poppy that's like toxic to gophers.
I think that was what someone told me. Someone came on my show, or I was at a meeting for like policy stuff, because I do a lot of volunteering or trying to advocate for a ordinance at that time. Someone was like, try this, because I've been doing these. He gave me a bag of poppy seed. California, it was native. Yeah, it was native plants. And so when we planted the cannabis in the holes, we just kind of sowed a pretty nice green mulch layer, and we're very successful.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where we just,
and isn't it,
I pray this works. I hope this works.
And it's so beautiful too. Like when you have with all your plants, you have like these, flowers everywhere.
Oh,
there's bumblebees and butterflies and,
like
everything.
A magazine or something. Yeah.
Oh, it's so great. It's just like so magical. You just get to walk around the garden and check it on everything. Flowers everywhere, and everything is so happy.
Why not? Yeah, why not? I missed that garden. Because it was a really challenging grow, though. Crazy slope. Yeah, we were always fighting something. Wild. The water too. We didn't have. It was gravity fed water from it's an 80-acre property, so there's always a leak. Then we had no water, and we'd have to. It was a nightmare, honestly. but when things worked, it was just the most magical experience, and I learned a lot. I mean, every time you do something challenging, you walk away learned a lot. Yeah, that's how you learn.
How are you gonna learn if you're not?
That's right.
The universe is just always testing us, so we have to grow constantly. It's like, oh, thanks. I guess. It's like, it'd be great if it was just perfect and everything just went perfectly.
I wish. If only. I know. It's and you just try to keep it manageable at least.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, 100%. I really like buckwheat. You ever played with buckwheat as a companion?
No, maybe I have. I haven't. I don't know much about buckwheat. How is it? What do you like about it?
So the root system is really shallow.
Nice.
So it kind of goes like horizontally. So it doesn't like take up a bunch of that root space that you want your cannabis plant to have.
Nice.
It also has, it attracts beneficial insects. As a pollinator, so it's going to attract your bees. It's going to attract some butterflies, which sometimes people aren't big on butterflies being in their garden because of caterpillars.
Sure.
Gotta use your enzyme spray, your Bacillus thuringiensis, Israelite. Anyway, but it's a really great companion plant for a phosphatase root exudates. So it will help break down phosphorus in the soil, which is always like the big one, the hard one to make available, and takes a really long amount of time to make available. So secretes a lot of those phosphatase enzymes to make phosphorus more available. It's also one of the best contributors of available hydrogen. Not hydrogen, just electrons. It adds free electrons, right? So it increases your redox potential in your soil, which allows for quicker covalent bonding of different elements to allow for faster covalent bonding rates. So then things will convert into plant available forms faster. So adds redox, makes things available faster, releases phosphorus, attracts beneficial insects, doesn't have super deep roots.
Yeah, the shallow roots is important.
It's a great one. It does get a little tall, so you don't want to plant it too close together. I made that mistake, and then I had these.
I've made that mistake too. Yeah.
And then when they get too tall, because I had them in a 400-gallon pot with my big plants, and they got so tall they started falling over, and then they weren't creating a shade for the soil at all. So I had to knock them over sideways and create like a wreath or a wreath. like around like the plant. There's just like this spiral of buckwheat. It was kind of
I
cool.
love it. That is cool. It's like a crop circle almost, where you're kind of
Yeah,
like,
right. And then they start to shoot new flowers and stuff, and then you just have like this wreath of flowers like surrounding your plant. But
nice. Oh,
buckwheat's a good
I'll
one.
definitely play with buckwheat. Yeah,
Rye is another good one.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
but try to find plants that are native to your
Native. Yep.
to your area for sure.
Yeah, I've definitely done some native cover crop kind of seed blends, and I'm sure maybe some of that was in there. And then the same thing with the garden last year. Whatever they had was the soil was we didn't have the budget to really fertilize. It was just a water only crop, but that living soil and those cover crops, they did the trick, because those flowers were they came out beautifully, and we were blessed. We had really good genetics. It was for a good cause. A lot of the flowers went to patients. We have a SB34 compassion program, and so the intention was there. The seeds lined up, the cover crops, the living soil, the water worked. Even with the weed pressure, we persevered, and even with the aphids, we lucked out because they ate everything but the cannabis.
That's great. They're gonna go for the easiest plants to eat, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's what my intuition was. Well, I didn't know at the time. I was freaking out at the time, but in the end, yeah, they went for the easy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of different species of aphids that don't really like cannabis too.
Oh, that's great to know. See, and that's I feel like a lot of people in Santa Cruz, we always kind of overreact, or maybe farmers in general.
I think just humans overreact.
Yeah, they're your babies. The plants are your babies. You get very attached. I understand. I'm the same way, and so you see a bunch of bugs and you're worried. But sometimes you got to let go, and nature has a way of life will find a way.
Yeah. Ian Malcolm over here. I mean, that was the best character in that movie, right?
Yeah.
I was a huge Jurassic Park fan. It's a reference to Jurassic Park. Yeah. Ian Malcolm. He's the best character in that movie, I think.
He's very good.
Yeah.
The OG Jurassic Park. That's my favorite.
Yeah, OG Jurassic Park. Yeah, that's one of my favorites growing up when I was a kid.
Likewise, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but definitely life does find a way. It's amazing what plants do and what nature can do, and to adapt to different circumstances.
What do you for people when you're looking at sex? What is your best approach? I was lucky last year with that big seeded garden was their female seeds, so it was all good there. But I'm trying to teach like my family out in El Dorado County, trying to encourage them to grow more from seed.
See that California poppies are toxic to mammals, someone just said.
Ooh. So that could be, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and that's probably why the gophers are
deterred. Like that's great to know. That's a great piece of information. I'm sorry to interrupt you. What
that's it. No, just sexing. Any advice for anyone?
Sexing.
Sexing regular seed and the importance of regular seed, because I think it's important to encourage people to build a relationship with regular seed, not just.
I am definitely a big fan of regulars. I do not grow feminized seeds. I'm not trying to shit on anyone, or people sometimes don't have space to grow regulars and they just need a feminized seed. I'm just not big on them. I'm not big on autoflowers. But so sexing. Back to sexing. So I mean, usually I just let them go until they start throwing their sexual characteristics.
Yeah, until it's obvious.
And a lot of people say, like they shouldn't show their sexual characteristics until they get like a flowering photo period. I've found that most of the time, genetics, if you just let them go long enough from seed, even in vegetative life, they'll start to show their sexual characteristics. I
concur.
And I really don't think it has anything to do with stability or quality of the genetic. A lot of people, they like to send it in for testing, right? And I think that if you're really cramped on space and you have some extra cash, that can be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
I always go right to the crotch. Sex organs are always in the crotch, right? So you go right down to the crotch of the plant where your main stalk is, meaning your offshooting branches, and they just hang out right there. I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
I can tell the difference pretty easily. It's just always look for a pistil by the shape of the seed. I don't believe that is true. I've found that to actually not be true. The little butt, they have I've seen that where people say that the dimple or the protruding is an indication of the sex of the seed. I've never found that to be true. It could be that there's some piece of information that I do not know. I'm always open to being incorrect. I definitely don't know everything. I'm always open to learning, but I don't believe that is true. I've never had anyone prove me wrong or say that I'm not. I mean, of course, in general, of course, but when it comes to that, I've never seen anyone actually show me that they can identify sex from the shape of the seed. Have you found that to be true?
No, I've heard this. I love the community, and I've learned so much from the elder growing community here in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and that was something. Yeah, the physical presentation of the seed, and I have no conclusive anecdotal evidence on. I maybe it's an experiment. Maybe there's a scientific approach to proving it or disproving it, but no, I've grown some wild seed, diversity in the shapes and the even sometimes things that don't look beautiful grow beautiful plants. You can never really judge a seed by its cover, in my opinion.
You were able to do it.
Wow.
Show me how. I want to know how to do it.
Okay, I'll bring Andy on with you. That's the Invisible Gardener. I do a show with him every Wednesday night. So I'll have to bring him on, and he can tell you all about it, Luna.
Yeah,
That's
show me how.
Awesome.
I'm always open to learning new things. I've never that particular thing I've never experienced, but I'm open to being wrong. I would love to be wrong. I would love to just be able to determine if a plant is female from seed.
Well, that would be, what a gift to provide the community if you can identify even before germination sex. That would be a next level gift, because I'm trying to encourage family members that are 200 miles away to explore growing from seed. And we have such an abundance of regular seed. They only want female seeds or autoflower female or clone. And I am I have such a love affair with just the most natural approach, and want to empower them, because they've had happy accidents, right? They've had issues sexing. And it's frustrating when they do everything right, but one boy got away, and so that everything's seeded now. We've all had that.
I've done consultation on hemp farms a whole bunch. I've worked on a good handful of hemp farms.
Nice.
And I was on one particular hemp farm where they were like, we want to grow autoflower feminized hemp, right?
Yeah.
Because it comes down earlier.
Sure.
It's
yeah.
all female. And every single time that I've seen anyone do that, they always had hermaphrodism problems. There was always a female plant that just at some point decided to just throw pollen everywhere, and then their whole field had seeds in it, and then they were just in this massive issue where like, okay, now we have to try to turn seeded hemp into concentrate on this massive scale, and it's just huge problem. So like it seems like it's going to be easier, but it never worked out. I never saw it work out for anyone. And maybe if someone can, there is a company, I think it's called EcoGen out of Colorado, that they do like actual genetic engineering of seeds to make them feminized. But even then, 99.98% effective. But if you're growing, millions of seeds, you're still going to get males, and you're still going to pollinate your location.
I had a patch in the field last year. We weren't millions, but we were thousands of seeds. And there was there was a corner that expressed, boy, I didn't see it, but at the point of harvest, I had my band come help me because it was so much weed I couldn't, we needed a crew. And they came to me and they're like, "Did you put boys out here? Because these buds
I intentionally put boys in this. No,
not at all, man. What are you talking about? And I have the metric manifest. It's all out there. It's clear. And they're like, "These are full of beans, bro. These are full of beans." And I was like, "Well, there are girls that express boy. Yeah, something happened. I don't know." And it was stressful. They had the weed pressure at Santa Cruz. It's 100% humidity at night. It's crazy.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna go in. You're gonna inspect the crotch of every single limb of every single plant.
We had rows, and each row is a football field. It's
like how are you gonna do that? Because we were doing that too at one point, where people were like making laps. You got like 4 people like making laps up and down the rows looking for male flowers.
That's a really professional way to do it. We just didn't have the budget. I would have done it. I tried doing it.
It still didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Life finds a way.
It's just it's so difficult.
It wasn't the whole field, but it was a section for sure that was fully seeded. Luckily, the other stuff was so solid it worked out. Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now people have huge abundance of partially autoflower hemp seeds in the world. Like, here, pop this, have fun, see what happens.
Yeah. No, and I've tried the autoflower thing, and I just don't think. No, I don't know about ruderalis. I know they're getting better. I had a friend send me some freebies with me testing some of his full-term genetics. They smell way better than the other autos I've played with. So I'm always open to try things, but I've seen issues with it's such a hard competitive space. The autoflowers never quite are a good competitive edge, in my opinion.
The market demands such a bag appeal. Correct. You got to check all the boxes.
Right.
I haven't personally seen autoflowers do it. I'm not saying that they don't exist, and I'm sure and I haven't been. I don't grow a lot of autoflowers, so I really don't know. But I agree with you. The autoflower flower that I have seen did not compete in the modern marketplace.
Yeah, it's an issue. I think there was a hope there, and even the field I cultivated the year prior, they were doing autos in it, and I saw the warehouse with all those autos still there when I was farming our crop a year later. So they just couldn't sell it. It was a bummer. And California I can't speak for every market, but California is really Santa Cruz specifically is cutthroat. You have to just be. It's immaculate cannabis. It has to be immaculate. That's just phenomenal just to get into the showing.
That's everywhere now.
That's everywhere. Yeah.
It's everywhere now.
That, but I'm just talking from my experience. Yeah.
So I've grown, I was in Northern California for 10 years, grew in Southern Oregon, and I'm in Central Oregon now. And, I have friends all over the West Coast of the United States and have been part of the cannabis community for like 14 years now, whatever. So I definitely, I've seen it, and that seems to be the vibe.
Yeah.
Everyone's
likewise.
All the investors are backing out. So many different places are shutting down. And now it's all these huge MSOs left, or kind of getting there.
Those, that's right.
And a lot of them are going down too.
They're going down. Some of the bigger
names closed a whole bunch of their locations, and
that's right.
I think that, and also I feel like this is like the birth of living soil, though.
Amen.
Because we saw this explosion of hydroponic cookies and OG, in these huge facilities, crop steering, coco coir, rock wool, with these different nutrient lines and these uniform conditions. There's no space for terroir, right? There's no space for unique expression and unique cannabis. It's all very consistent, and you see the indicas, they all kind of smell the same, and they all smoke the same, and they get you high. They get you high like a drug, but it's not like a therapeutic medicine to me, where I won't even smoke it.
I don't. Yeah.
And and the same with the sativas, you kind of get like that very particular profile. And there's like a few variations, and there's a whole bunch of different names, right? But it all just seems to be the same and it's grown the same. And I think that's kind of left, I feel like that's one of the reasons why the industry is kind of falling apart right now, is because the cannabis isn't what it's supposed to be. And people who know what real cannabis is are just kind of left longing for what it used to be. And you hear a lot of people kind of going back to like, I want those old school genetics, because I feel like a lot of the time people think that these old school genetics are what it was that they need, like why those effects aren't anymore. But I think a lot of it has to do with the old school techniques. The people, Northern California Humboldt grown weed was like the best weed in the world, right? And I really think that it was because a lot of it was grown guerrilla style and like
in the patches. Yes, Big Sur too. We have so many, I won't name any names, but we have family friends that were in the brambles in Big Sur. It's kind of romantic now to think back on it, even though it was scary and it wasn't good for them. Although they got paid, the price was worth it. It was worth the risk. But it's almost romantic because they were in these rugged guerrilla patches right by the ocean, yet they were amazing. Soil. It's the soil. It's this soil is natural expression. Right? Terroir. Yeah.
That's real terroir, right?
Yeah, and all of the weather, environmental factors were part of that flavor profile. The complete opposite of the spectrum of this controlled conditions and corporate MSO mids.
100% mids.
Yeah.
Mids.
It's all mid.
Like the biology that had been adapting to that climate forever and ever and ever, you're never going to mimic that. Like we strive to, we build containers, we introduce our IMOs and our ferments, and we add a bunch of good stuff, but you will I'll just say I will never, no one will ever be able to mimic a soil that has been existing and changing and adapting for millennia, right?
Amen.
And if you grow a plant in that soil, like in an old growth forest, which I don't recommend anyone do. I'm not trying to help people go out and
totally.
National forest. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I think that's why old school back in the day, people are like the best weed in the world is grown in Northern California because people were guerrilla growing it in the redwood forest.
That's true. That's so true. Although our little volunteers in the the mycelium of the tea roses post atmospheric river, there's something to be. We have our own little miniature versions of old growth forests and in these patches in our backyard that we don't even think about. There's something to be said about that. Mm-hmm. I might next year throw some this direct sow and try to mimic what happened just by an accident. Happy accidents can teach us a lot. I've learned a lot this year.
I want to. You know what I really want to do?
Tell me. What's
I want to prep like 4,000 gallons of soil and just do like Albrecht mineral balancing theories, like stuff, like make sure like everything is perfect and like prep the biology for like the whole winter, right? Do like some Melania layering and like get the biology nice and thriving, make sure that, all your mycelium is there, and like mulch it with wood and, native woods from local trees and stuff. And then just direct sow like every maybe six plants every or 6 seeds like every foot or something in a circle, and like 4,000 gallons of soil.
I love that. Yeah.
And just find the healthiest female, the most thriving female, and cull the rest of them, and just grow like direct sow, super prepped, 4,000 gallons of soil, just a single one, and just see what happens, see how big I can get it.
Yeah.
I really want to do it.
You should do it. You got to do it. I think it's a great idea. I've had conversations with friends too that are like the do nothing farmers, kind of like what you're with the blue kryptonite, where they sow it compost piles and whatnot, and it works. It works. They have a lot of fun and a lot of success, and that's regenerative in its own way. It's closing the loop.
and it's so hard. It is so hard to determine like what is really improving the quality of the cannabis, because everyone, we're always doing stuff and we're not doing side by sides. And so it's like, I'm doing this and I'm doing this, and I'm doing this. And my flower turned out incredible. would it have turned out incredible or the same or better if you wouldn't have done anything? You know, it's always hard to determine. But
yeah, that's true. No, that's a tricky one, and that sounds like an Ed Rosenthal experiment, because he's always doing those things where he's kind of small scale because he's in like Oakland, Piedmont. It's not like a lot of room, but he does these little experiments where he does have controls though. So there's something to be said. You don't need a big scale. Sometimes it's worth it to I just get so excited and just want all the diversity. I want all the projects.
Of course.
It's hard to focus on one, right? Yeah.
Like a physio or like a response, like a plant response when adding stuff is obvious. You know, like when a plant's unhealthy and then you do something to it and it's not unhealthy anymore, or you add something and their turgidity goes up. Those are good indicators that like what we're doing is working, right? That's kind of like all we have unless we're doing side by sides. So. True.
I think that is true, and being really connected throughout the growth process. Right. Yeah, and they really do. They do turn around. Yeah, you're right. You're so right.
And a lot of the time, sorry.
No. I was just speaking with an entrepreneur that's into robotics, trying to help out greenhouses and indoor cultivators, where they have like a cable system above, and the robot is going around. They're trying to do like a detection of yellow leaves or a pest like this. There's like a robotic helper doing the scouting. I know it's kind of crazy idea. But it's fascinating because he's from Italy. Yeah, well, that's the thing is he was like, how do these growers know what's wrong and how is it so intuitive? And I was like, well, you have to be passionate and you can see clearly when things aren't right. I don't know how to describe it. But there is an intuition when, like what you were saying, when it gets better, clearly it's better. But when something isn't better, clearly you can feel almost
being able to identify what that problem is and how to correct it.
Yeah, or even if you don't know right away, something's wrong, and that intuition can never really. In my opinion, you can't have a robot. That intuition is an intuition thing. I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, maybe there is an infrared.
There's some things it can do. It can tell you that there's something wrong, but I don't think it can tell you what to do.
There you're right. Yeah, I agree. I think it's data. I think that system would be wonderful, and that's what a lot of his value proposition is data, and having data and digestible data and having eyes on the crop all the time. That's interesting.
Because how is the robot going to do like soil analysis, live soil analysis 24/7?
I think right now what I was talking to him about was it's infrared, it was CO2, it was humidity, kind of like like what meters do. Nothing too crazy, but part of it was peace of mind. Part of it was peace of mind too, that you have something's got eyes on the girls all the time.
For those farmers that don't know how to farm, want to hire a robot instead of a farmer.
A Roomba.
For those investors who are tired of those weed-growing hippies on their farm, you can buy this robot.
It's just fascinating, though. Yeah, I think it's interesting that the intuition is a piece to the puzzle, and you can't quite replicate it. But I think it's interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating to learn new things, right?
Right. You can have a drone buzzing around your head 24/7, telling you that there's something wrong with your farm.
What if you did that scaled up in a hemp grow? I mean, it's fascinating.
It's cool. It's cool. I like drones. I like tech. I'm into it. I think there's.
I'm becoming more open.
Yeah.
Because I think in general, I'm definitely a hippie, honestly. Yeah. Well, there's something to be said about the intuition. I think there's something about the relationship of humans and cannabis. There's or any crop. I think a lot of cannabis farmers too grow their own food. They grow their own herbs. They grow everything. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. It's a really beautiful.
I grow plants to feed to my plants.
There you go. That's what's up. That's crucial. Yeah. Well, and we were talking about the buckwheat and the rye, and you need this.
Aloe and beets.
Yes, aloe. Yes.
Beets. Everyone should grow
aloe. I love that.
Have you given beets to your plants yet? That's my new
No,
thing.
but I've seen what you do. It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's really pretty too. It's fun to see a big
that
bubbling.
purple. Yeah, that purple brewer.
Compost here, yeah.
I need to do that. And so what is for the uninitiated, what are the beets doing to the biology of the cannabis crop?
So beets are really rich in prebiotics. Prebiotics are known as, they're polysaccharides. They're complex carbohydrates. The one in beets is inulin. It's also in like Jerusalem artichoke.
Wow.
But beets are also rich in nitric oxide, and plants have a physiological response to nitric oxide, and it stimulates different cycles within the plant, metabolic pathways, flavonoid pathways, and it has this really interesting synergetic effect with phycocyanins also, which is why I've been using phycocyanin extract in combination with nitric oxide, and then it creates this really purple-looking tea that just looks really cool too.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
So the phycocyanin is from spirulina. It's extracted from spirulina. They call it blue spirulina, but it is not a species of spirulina called blue spirulina. It is an extract of spirulina of just pure phycocyanin. So the red beet, so it has the prebiotics, it has the polysaccharides, it has the nitric oxide, and it's pretty and it looks good.
Yeah.
But
so you see the response, the positive.
Yeah.
I imagine the crop is just stoked.
So I've made my plants are stoked. I've made a ton of compost teas in my day, right? I just love, it's just so much fun. Like when I was little, I just had this fun game that I would play where I would mix stuff together in this big pot, and I'd make these big potions with my older sister, and we'd pour them on the garden, right? We're making magic potions for the garden, and now that's kind of just what I love to do still.
Yeah, look at that. Full
being
circle.
a childlike. But so I've made a lot of compost teas and a bunch of different recipes of compost teas, and I'm also really into microscopy. Pay attention to different different things that live in the compost teas. And one of the big ones that people always try to avoid is Myceliate, which are generally pathogenic, right? Can be pathogenic, not always. In the presence of different endophytes, they can actually be beneficial. So there's not a uniform rule. There's no uniform rule of one species is good or bad, even with Fusarium, but that's a tangent. Although when using molasses or monosaccharide sources, I find that over a certain period of time of brewing, you'll see Myceliate grow up, which is a water grow. Show up. Words are hard. And I talk sometimes. My brains go fast, and I don't.
Yeah.
The Myceliate, they show up when you're using simple sugars, when you're using molasses or brown sugar even. And when I switched to using polysaccharides only, prebiotics like inulin or from like aloe vera or from spirulina or oat flour. Oat flour is a big one that I like to use also. I haven't seen any Myceliate, even if I let the teas go for a really long period of time.
Wow.
And I think that's something. I think that's a thing. So I've stopped using molasses completely in my soil. No monosaccharides at all. Nice. And also the sugars, the carbohydrates that our roots exudate, they communicate with soil biology in a very particular way. And I think that those monosaccharides have the potential to interrupt those functions also. I was talking to Tim Hanrahan, and I were talking about that a bit last week. Yeah. So polysaccharides, they're the most abundant source of energy in nature. And like chitin is a polysaccharide, right? It's a fibrous polysaccharide, and sometimes people hear polysaccharides and they're like, oh, they're just sugars, but they have very unique structures and functions, like chitin, which is a fibrous polysaccharide that builds the cell walls of crustaceans and mushrooms, which can be very fibrous. It's not like cane sugar. It's not like this thing you put in your mouth and it dissolves, and it takes a very specific enzyme for it to break down. Chitinase, and even with chitinase in the presence of chitin, it can take 6 months for it to break down. Wow. So it's not easy for these things to become available, and it takes a long period of time.
Yeah.
Also, beta-glucans are a polysaccharide, a prebiotic found in mushrooms. And so I was playing with using beta-glucans in combination with mushroom compost to feed the very specific biology of mushroom compost with beta-glucans, which is, it was like a health food supplement. And my thinking is this like immediately available form given to the biology that surrounds a mushroom compost will feed that specific biology in like a compost tea. I don't know if it actually did because I can't identify specific species with a microscope. It's just not possible, right? We need like DNA sequencing or to do like agar planing and tons of research.
There you go.
It's not something that's possible with a compound microscope like I have. I can kind of get an idea of whether or not things are, microbial density, diversity of protozoa, bacterial chaining. These are things I can identify with a microscope, fungal presence and things like that. But when it comes to like the specific species that wants to feed on beta glucans being multiplied by beta glucans, that's something I can't do.
Yeah, it's fascinating though. I love really the relationship there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Do you ever inoculate your beds or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, with fungal stuff. Yeah. So, I'm big on using wood chips from your native environment, and not bark, but wood chips. Bark, bark has beneficial functions for sure, but just by nature, bark is meant to keep bacteria and from consuming a tree, right? Its purpose is an antibacterial element. Right,
counterintuitive.
It's like our skin keeps bacteria from getting into our bodies.
Yes.
Bark is keeping bacteria from getting into the vascular system of a plant, and so by nature it's antibacterial. It's not super antifungal. You see fungi growing on trees all the time. It's a big carbon source, but so I try to keep. Sorry, sometimes I just rant. So I try to keep that bark out. But I like to go to like a local arborist who's been clearing trees out of surrounding area, your local surrounding area, and collect all those wood chips and just throw them down, and then go out foraging and find, and inoculate the wood chips. Yeah, so my train of thought.
Sure.
Go out and find native fruiting bodies that are feeding on the wood chips, the species of wood and the trees that you found.
Wood chips. Dry
them out, chop them up, throw the fruiting bodies everywhere, throw the spores everywhere. That's how I like to do it. And it's taken a while, but I just pulled back my my mulch yesterday, and I saw this cluster of hyphal knots with a whole bunch of tiny little yellow mushrooms that are now starting to grow from my layer, because it takes a while for it to really work.
Yes.
So yes, I do inoculate my beds with fungi, but I think that's really how you achieve fungal populations in your soil. I don't think that compost teas or any aerobic kind of fermentation or anaerobic fermentation is an effective way of introducing fungal bodies into the soil. I think that if you add like a fruiting block, is everything good? Do you need to go?
No, it's my wife's aunt watering the apple trees.
Oh, okay.
I'm just waving.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I just want to make sure that you're good.
No, this is wonderful because it's just affirming, because we were taught collect duff in our we have this. So we're in this beautiful sunny spot, and it goes up against UCSC Nature Reserve, and there's the tree line of the redwood forest, but we're in a sunny spot off of the tree line, and there are some live oaks nearby, and we were taught early to gather, even for our food garden, that oak duff that was it was like webs of native mycelium, and
So like fallen leaf matter.
Exactly. And there's natural little zones of it, and you kind of just bring that and put that in. My wife's family was commercial fishermen too, so we have this love of fish, and just bringing in the native, just bringing that in, inoculating with what's foraging essentially the the same idea of wood chips. Essentially, it's just leaf matter.
Yeah, leaf matter.
Yeah.
It's just kind of hard to move it undisturbed.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
On top, right? You kind of have to create the environment for fungal bodies to want to form.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and that's where wood chips make a lot of sense. And I have kind of put them in wood chips as well, and just let them, and then put those in holes or whatnot. Yeah, even a top dressing. Yeah,
Stuff.
It's important. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, nature is just so much fun to play with.
Yes, it is truly. Is there anything that you're growing that's kind of new for you or exciting? Something you're looking forward to?
Like genetic wise?
Yeah, or anything that's surprising you just in the garden.
So I got a seed from Kevin Jodry.
Oh yeah, I love Kevin.
Kevin is an awesome guy.
Very
and I have that growing, and it's super tight node spacing. The plant isn't getting really big. It doesn't have really big leaves, but it has these really, really tight node spacing. I'm really curious to see. I'm really interested to see, because the structure of it seems very thoroughly bred. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So you can tell that someone put a lot of time into that genetic.
Wow.
And he told me who he got it from, and someone gave it to him as like this, like,
yeah,
you know. And he was like, "Here, I can give you a couple of these," you know. And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Cool.
So I popped some of those. Curious to see how that turns out. I started them indoors, and I didn't get them in the ground or in the beds soon enough, and they kind of started to get root bound. Hello, kitten. And
oh, I know how that goes.
And then I put it.
Hi, Steve.
Hi.
I put them in my beds, and they struggled for a second, and then I gave them a good tea, and it kicked right back out of it, and they're nice and healthy and thriving now. So I'm curious to see them. I would love some Thai seeds. I love having seeds from all different places. I have some Brazilian landrace. I would love some Thai stuff. I really want to get like a solid landrace collection going on. That's something that I want to work on. Like I got a couple different things from people. It's always someone online that's like, Luna, like I have this really cool thing and you need to have it. And I'm like, yes, all right, give it to me. And then I'm like, I don't have any space for it. It's in my collection, and one day I'll be able to grow, these seeds.
Yeah.
But
I know. There's it's a friend of mine on the west side, and he just only landrace. Fascinating stuff. A lot of Indian, a lot of Lao and Thai, Malawis, Orissa. Yeah, he's really into India landrace stuff. And gorgeous work.
It's so cool. I love seeing the expressions.
The plants are beautiful. Yeah.
My buddy's sending me some Iranian landrace.
Ooh, very nice. Yes.
There's like a lot of Iranian landrace. I was like, I've never heard like Persian weed. I was like, I've never even heard of that before.
It's awesome.
And I got what is it? Oh, I'm growing a bunch of Afghani stuff right now.
Nice.
And I have Hawaiian.
I got nice.
Brazilian in my collection. So give me Panama Red. Do you have any Derma Poison?
Yeah.
I really want Panama Red, Derma Poison. Just give me everything. Just give me all places.
I had a wonderful year with Panama Red. I had a almost purple black pheno. I had a green pheno with like fuchsia, and then I had a pure green pheno. It was a very interesting year. I loved it. I think it had a natural mixed ratio too. Some of these old land races are a few cannabinoids. It's not just THC. You can feel that it's not quite all THC. It's fascinating.
That's how it should be. We need to get the market away from like terpenes and THC. It's like, dude, like, come on. Like,
no, I love the mixed ratio. I love the feeling of having everything kind of balanced. And that's what these older cultivars that I've grown, or these landrace cultivars are some of the best. Oh wow, he went down to Panama.
That's
Very
amazing.
cool. That's a cool story.
That's some passion right there. Yeah.
I love these like trek stories because it's not quite the same. If you go to these places, they're growing like Amnesia Haze now, and you're like, oh, womp womp. You know, this is like
German Wars. Awesome.
very good.
Awesome.
Yeah, I see the tie from
the tie. I want some like Japanese language. Someone were like, it was super banned forever, and like
the band still is pretty banned. Although, they love cannabis, but I think it's pretty illegal.
Oh yeah,
I just came around, right? That was not a good.
Yeah, it was like go to prison for life, and now it's like no, you can just grow however much you want.
Yeah, now it's like California 5-10 years ago. Yeah,
right. Yeah, really. Yeah, I have a whole bunch of friends that went out there.
Me too. I had a few
and,
Northern Cal friends that were so over it, and they moved to Thailand, and they seemed very happy. They seem like it's actually
They're doing it. They're doing it.
So,
just like the one West Coast white guy, all these Thai farmers.
Yeah, totally. I wish it was. Well, maybe someday. I would like to do like one of those treks, like a pilgrimage, to get some really interesting stuff.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, water is good. I need water. Oh, here he comes. Oh, just kidding.
Another guest appearance.
Another guest appearance by Steve.
Steve.
Mm-hmm.
And you like I love Southern Oregon. You said you did some time in Northern California. How is where you are now with the different seasons and the different, terroir?
It's so dry. It is. You kill me. Central Oregon is so dry.
It's dry.
It's so frustrating.
It's hard, I bet. Yeah.
Like my plants are healthy, right?
Yeah.
But you can tell when a plant is trans-evaporating, outdoors, when they're trying to save their surface area a bit. And I deal with that a lot.
Wow. Just the air is dry.
The air is dry.
Yeah.
I'm in the desert. I'm growing in the desert in a greenhouse. Yeah. Without a wet wall.
Yeah.
So Southern Oregon, probably the easiest place I've ever grown weed in my entire life.
How cool. Yeah.
Central Oregon, not even that far away, 3.5 hour drive from where I was.
Sure.
One of the hardest places I've ever grown ever.
Wow.
It was easier to grow in Ontario, Canada. It just because of the rain shadow. We're in a rain shadow here, the Cascades, all that moisture from the coast goes over the Cascades, and it all falls up, going up, falls going up the mountain, and then the air comes down the other side, and it's all dry. Oh, the rain shadow.
Yeah,
so
rain shadow.
It's just dry. There's water rock everywhere.
Yeah. Oh man, that's humbling.
Lava country.
Yeah, lava country.
Cinder is cheap. You can get the lava rock for really cheap. It's really easy to get hummus and lava rock around here.
Dime a dozen. There's plenty of.
It's really easy. But a lot of obsidian. But
yeah,
don't recommend
that is true. Yeah, no, that's fascinating.
But Northern California was great. People in Northern California, they don't know how good they got it.
It's spoiled, right?
And in Southern Oregon, they don't know how good they got it.
Yeah, I love Southern Oregon. That whole The
Rogue Valley. I was growing in the Rogue Valley.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really arrogant growers out there. They're like, I grow these monster trees because I am an amazing grower.
It's a charmed place, Rogue Valley. Yeah. Wolf Creek, and I have a lot of love in Ashland, and these are beautiful places.
Ashland,
wonderful places. And it's a great place to grow.
Yeah, it was fun. I went to Cuba and brought back some of their black indica. Nice.
Jeez. Cuban, so
I want
black.
your collection. You want to trade seeds?
Yeah, let's go.
I got
Keep
some
in touch.
18 seeds.
Keep in touch, please. Or come
Yeah.
There's some fascinating landrace work in this community that is still kind of hasn't come out. I think a lot of people have landrace work, but they haven't grown it all out like us. We have so much stuff that we haven't grown it.
Yeah. I have so much stuff. It just chills and chills. And people send me stuff too. People are like, I really want you to grow this out. And I'm like, I would love to have your genetics and I would love to grow them out as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to share seeds with me, I highly encourage you to, and I would love to take your seeds. Don't expect them to be popped immediately. Fair warning.
Yeah.
Because I'm also doing breeding too, and I have to like test my genetics. And so
no,
it's like,
that was my issue this year, and I actually kind of regret that I didn't pop a lot of my work. I popped everyone that sent me work, and it's Cambodian red. Wow, very interesting. I was trying to be a good tester, and now I think moving forward, I'm just going to reverse it and do mostly the work I've been working on, and then maybe one or two testers.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Yeah. It's a lesson. It's another lesson. Although, if these are our problems, we're living in an abundance. I mean, we're so lucky.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So lucky.
The cannabis plant has brought me abundance.
Too many seeds. What am I gonna do?
Yeah. Oh, it's so terrible. Like I can never smoke my weed. I can never smoke all my weed.
Yeah.
Never have weed. I have too many seeds I can plant.
There's too much to do.
What a horrible problem that I have. No, the cannabis plant has brought me abundance, and having an alliance with nature and implementing natural systems has brought such abundance to my life. I'm completely grateful and thankful to the plant, to the earth, and to the bugs and the microbes. I love it.
Me too. 100%. That's the biggest gift of all, is reconnecting that connection back to the soil, back to the roots.
All right, Chris. We are over our time.
Epic.
That was
wonderful. Thanks for having
me with you. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on and chatting. It's so amazing.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
so much.
Anything you guys need at any time, I'm here for you. I'm here for the community, and I really appreciate coming on. This was a wonderful experience, and if anyone ever needs anything, we're in Santa Cruz, so say hi.
Andy's down in Malibu, so you might get a direct connection.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, we have family down there too in Southern California, so it's always nice to connect the dots. That Cannabis Connection keeps us all together.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So next week we have Benjamin Acadia, who's really supposed to be on this week. He will be on next week. We're going to be talking about secondary metabolites, how to boost secondary metabolites in the cannabis plant. And we'll have Alex, the Queen of the Sun Grown, back.
Excellent.
Yep. And for the channel guys, we've got Shay LeBlanc from Rosebud Farms, the guy that started the Unicorn Cup, or now the Unicorn Music Festival, on tomorrow night on the DM Pure podcast with me. So you're going to want to check that out at 6 p.m. Pacific.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Cheers.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.